Okay, well, hello. As you can see, it's an empty class today, so we'll just see how this goes. Hopefully someone will come in late, and if not, that's just fine too. So what we're doing today is looking at a specific tense called reduced relative clause. And basically, it's an upper level grammar tense. However, it's simplifying your language. And so we're going to say some things differently than you would normally say them. Okay? It's the same meaning and things like that. Before I do get started, though, I do have to say hello to my best friend in the world, Kaylin. So she can see me in my fame. So, and maybe learn something actually. So why don't I go ahead and screen share my, I'm still learning this. Google Hangouts, reduced relative clauses is what I want to share. So I'll go ahead and, oops, I have to click share too. So now you can see the screen, which is perfect. And basically I've made the font bigger, which is an improvement from last week. So I'm learning. And so reduced relative clauses. Whoops, I'm speeding up here. So we can use participle clauses after a noun, which I'll explain, in the same way as a relative clause. And if you think about it, a relative clause, let me just make a little note here. A normal relative clause would be the woman who is wearing purple there. Okay, and so what we're doing here is we're using who, the woman, and so we're adding some extra information here, which we actually don't need. If I go into the room and I say, hey, I'm looking for a woman who's wearing purple. Basically, this is one way that we can say it. Instead of saying, oh, the woman is over there. Well, you need to be a little bit more specific, and that's why we would say the woman who is wearing purple is over there. Okay, so that's an example of a normal relative clause. We'll get that out of the way. Okay, and so it gives more information about the noun. We sometimes call this a reduced relative clause, and that's basically it. And so there's three types that we're going to be looking at today. And so we'll start with this first one, a present participle, which is basically, it's just the verb plus ing. That's all a present participle is. A lot of people do know the past participle, which is, for example, ben, B-E-E-N, which is the past participle of the verb to be. Okay, I know here in Spain they use the third column a lot, as the first column is usually used for present, the second column for past simple, and then the third column is the past participle. And so the present participle is less known. I actually learned what a present participle was probably 2 years ago. Excuse me, about 2 years ago. So I thought, oh, there is a present. Is there a future? And I haven't found a future participle yet, but if anyone knows, okay. A present participle, the verb plus ing, can be used in the same way as an active relative clause. Okay, and so that's what we were saying with my example of the woman who is wearing purple is over there. That's a normal relative clause. This example says the woman riding in the car is a friend of mine. And so it basically has a very similar meaning, however, a little differently. So this is the same as the woman who is riding in the car is a friend of mine. So basically what we're doing is we're taking riding, okay, and we're just taking out who is, because we still have riding. And so this who is riding is only substituted for the word riding in the first sentence. Okay, so that's why we call it a reduced relative clause, is because we're reducing the number of words that we're actually using in a sentence. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody, since I have no one to ask today. which is, okay? And so I just get rid of that. In this next part, it says the present participle can replace any active tense, not just the present continuous tense. Okay? Because present participle, we see it's the verb with ing, which normally means it's in a continuous tense. There's present continuous or past continuous. And the only difference there is that the verb to be changes. Okay, so for example, is writing is in the present continuous because the verb to be is in the present tense. Now, if this is where the word was, the woman who was writing, that's just the past continuous. And so what they're saying in this next part is that the present participle, the verb plus ing, can replace any active tense. Any active tense. It doesn't matter what tense it's actually in. Okay? So my example here is large vehicles driving over the bridge have to be careful of the wind. Okay, well, go on the next page here. Good, we can get everything in the picture. It means large vehicles driving over the bridge have to be careful of the wind. That are driving. So something's incorrect here. And I checked this yesterday. That drive probably. Okay, and so we're saying we're using the present simple here because it's a habit. It's something that's normal. It's normal to happen. And so that's why we're just using the present simple. But however, we've used driving, the present participle, in the first sentence, substituting the present simple for the present participle. Lots of different grammar words here, okay? So that's basically what they're saying when the present participle, this, can replace any active tense, okay? So not just the present continuous, again, what we saw in the first example. Here to correct my mistakes, so I have to be extra attentive today. So for example, who was the man wearing the red hat? Okay, and so this is a subject question, I think, if I'm correct. And so here we have, who was the man who was wearing? So again, just like in the first example, we're taking out, we're reducing the amount of words that we're actually using, and we have just the word wearing. Okay, so again, here we're using the present participle, the verb plus ing. And both of these sentences have the same meaning. There's no difference in this whatsoever, okay? It's just a different way to say it. Hopefully that makes sense because I am going to move on to our next example here. So students turning in their papers late will lose 10 points, okay? It has the same meaning as students who turn in their papers late will lose 10 points. Okay, so now we have a relative clause, who, referring to the students, and we're using the verb turn. So again, this is in the present tense because this is a normal habit. I'm sure lots of teachers say this or something similar. And we're substituting the relative clause here, who, with the main verb in this sentence, turn, and we're using participle, okay? And that's basically it. So we're taking out who in the main verb and changing it to the verb plus ing in any tense. Okay, I'm trying to think, what if we do this in the past tense? Let's try this out and see what happens. So students who turned in their papers, okay, so this would have to change to would lose 10 points. If you didn't know this, one of the things that we do is we use will when it's the present tenses with obviously future meaning. And then when we're talking about more of a hypothetical situation, we use would instead of will. Okay, so that's why I had to change that. So students who turned in their papers late would lose 10 points. And then let's see if this one still makes sense. Students turning in their papers late will lose 10 points. Now, you can say this first sentence before students turn in their papers. This sentence now transformed into the past tense. It sounds more like reported speech to me. This sounds like something that people would say after. They'd say, the teacher told the students, or said to the students, students who turned in their papers late would lose 10 points. So this takes on a different meaning. So let's not go with that. Hey, you have to try things in English, and I'm not perfect either, and everyone can always learn, okay? So that's the first part of the 3 parts, okay? So now moving on to the next one, we're using the past participle. Like I said, the third column, which it's also known as, can be used in the same way as a simple passive relative clause. Okay. So that's a lot of grammar there too. Passive is, we use the passive tense when the action is more important than the person who did it. Okay. I'm trying to think of a really good example. This picture was painted in the 1500s. How about this painting was painted in the 1500s, just for an example. So what we have here is was painted as our main verb. What we have is the main be plus the verb in the third column. It's the past participle. Okay, so the fact that this painting, whichever painting you're looking at, was painted in the 1500s, well, that's great, but we don't know who the artist is. Now, that's the point of this sentence, is that the artist isn't important here. What we're actually focusing on is when it was painted, and the fact that it was painted, maybe it wasn't drawn or something. Okay, so that's when we use the passive, is to focus on the action more so than the person. All right, and so this is a little passive introduction, I suppose, that will help us, hopefully. Okay, moving down just a little bit. So we have, we read the letter sent by our boss. Okay, so we're changing sent here. We read the letter that had been sent by our boss. Okay, now in the passive tense, we use a lot of by, because when the person is important or it's necessary to know who did the action, or maybe you just want to know, that's when we use by, okay? And so what we're saying here is we read in the past simple the letter that had been sent. So had been sent is our simple passive relative clause. Well, this is the long form, and then the reduced is here. Okay. And so again, we have the verb to be in the past perfect, and then we have sent, which is the third column or the past participle of the verb to send. And so what we're doing is taking out had been, and we're substituting it in our other sentence, which is the reduced relative clause. We read the letter sent by our boss. Okay, your boss is probably important, so you should always mention your boss. But the important part is first that you read it and that it was sent by your boss. So again, we're focusing on the actions here. Okay, so for example, this next one, this bowl made in China in the 1400s is very valuable. Okay, so that's great. So it has the same meaning as this bowl, which was made in China in the 1400s, excuse me, is very valuable. All right. So what we're doing here is this is our main verb, was made. Okay. It's in the past simple passive here. This is the verb was is the past simple for the verb to be, which is our main structure for the passive tense, with the past participle here, made. And so what we're doing is taking out which was, and we're just substituting it for made, which is the past participle. Okay? Hopefully that's all understandable. Trying to think. I'm going to go back to this and see if there's questions. I can't really look. Looks like there's one viewer, if I can see that correctly. So hello. All right, so let me get back to my presentation here. And we'll continue on. Again, we're still talking about the past participle here. So our first sentence says, he will only eat cakes made by his father. He must make some special ones. And so it has the same meaning as he will only eat the cakes that are made by his father. And so again, this is our present passive tense. We have the verb to be, are is in the present tense, the present simple. And again, the past participle verb of made is from make. And so we're taking out that are. And we're just saying he will only eat cakes made by his father. We don't need to say that are at all. And again, his father's important, so we'll talk about his dad in there, okay? Okay, we'll continue on here. Now, this is the last of the 3 parts, okay? There is some practice, so I might have to go ahead and do that myself, but that's just fine too. So this is the last part, like I said, and this is the part where we're using being, the verb be plus ing, plus the past participle. Okay, and this can be used in the same way as a continuous passive relative clause. Sink in for just a moment here. Lots of grammar today, okay? So, for example, the script being read by the actress was written by my sister. All right, so lots of bys here. One of these bys, at least, is for the passive, okay? And then it has the same meaning as the script that is being read by the actress was written by my sister. Okay, so in this sentence, is being read is our continuous passive. This is a present continuous passive. And you can always tell which verb tense the verb to be is in, and that's your tense, basically. Okay, so is being read is something that's happening in the moment. It's a present continuous. And then by the actress, okay, we actually have 2 different passives in this sentence. We have is being read as the present continuous passive, and then we have was written as simple passive. Okay, and so the main important thing here is that the script is being read. Okay, so an actress is reading a script, and that script was written by someone's sister. Not my sister, but someone's sister. Okay, so there's 2 passives in here, and we're just substituting. This one is being read. All right, so we're taking out that is. So the script being read by the actress was written by my sister. Now, if we wanted to, I'm trying to think in what kind of questions people would have, and I would say the script being read by the actress, written by my sister, and so we can take out was here. Let's do that. my grammar today. My sister. The script being read by the actress, written by my sister, was found in her room, for example. And so we're also using another passive. And so that's what I was trying to get to, is if we reduce this passive to, instead of was written, then we need to have another one as well. Because normally in English, you're using the same verb tense. I like chocolate and I love dark chocolate, for example. So I'm using like and love, which are both in the present simple tense, conjugated for me, I, the subject. And because we're using the connector and, we're continuing the same idea. Okay, so we're continuing the same tense as well. And that's exactly what's happening here. We have being read, the continuous passive. Written is the past simple. And then we have the past simple passive again, because it was written in one moment in the past, and it was also found at one moment in the past as well. When something happens one time, that's when we normally use the past simple tense. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully there aren't any other questions. I'm trying to see here on the website. I know the viewers can ask questions. Question and answer. Connecting to Google. Oh, I don't know what I did now. You are screen sharing. Okay, well, I'm not sure exactly what I did there. And I don't see any. Ask your audience to submit questions. Perfect. So, no, I don't see any questions. And I don't have any viewers at the moment either. So I'll take that away. I'm not sure I can take that away. Oh, yep, there it goes. Okay, technology is not my best thing in the world. We go on to this next sentence. I think I've answered all of my questions about the previous sentence. For example, the fruit being eaten at the wedding was grown in Spain. And of course I had to put my little touch in here of Spain. Fruit being eaten. Well, that comes from the fruit that is being eaten at the wedding was grown in Spain. So again, we're taking out that is, and I'm pretty sure that hopefully you understand it by now. And again, we have was grown in both sentences, because this is also in the passive tense. We're using all passive tenses in this last part. And so we need to continue with a passive, even though it's not the exact same passive. Again, we have the present continuous passive and then the past simple passive. Okay, well, moving on. These are some things to notice. Watch out, be careful. It says we generally don't use perfect participles, which is having plus the past participle in this case. Okay, so I made this an example from the last sentence that we saw. The fruit having eaten at the wedding was grown in Spain. We would not use that. Okay, perfect tenses always use the verb have. And so that's what we're not using in this case. We can't use this, okay? Again, that's a whole different day of grammar. That's more advanced. But it's also related to the last part here with being plus the past participle. So hopefully there's no questions there. A different day, I would be happy to talk about having in the past participle, which are the perfect participles, which I've done before. Not here, obviously. Nope. Okay, so number 2 says we can't use this kind of participle clause if we're talking about one finished action which is not repeated. Okay. So hopefully you can understand that we can't use this kind of participle clause if we're talking about one finished action which is not repeated. All right. So incorrect sentences. Who was the girl dropping the coffee? Who was the girl dropping the coffee? It does not sound great at all. And so we need to use a normal relative clause here. Okay, we're missing information in this first one. And so the correct answer would be, who was the girl who dropped the coffee? Okay. So we're asking a question. We're using a relative clause. Excuse me, I need to get a drink. Okay. So again, we're referring to that person. Who is that girl? And now we have some practice. Again, because I'm going to be doing this by myself, that's fine. We'll see how this goes. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Maybe I'll just change this one then. They called a lawyer, and the lawyer lived nearby. So what we'll do is take out the lawyer, because we don't need the lawyer in there 2 times. And even though this is in the past simple, we'll just change it to the present participle, the verb plus ing. So our new sentence is, they called a lawyer living nearby. Okay, and so this is the first part. This is the first example that we saw today. In this next one, we broke the computer. The computer belongs to my father. Well, first off, we'll take out the computer and the other parentheses. So we broke the computer belongs to my father. So this is in the present simple, and we'll say belonging. Okay. And I'm just thinking the other way to say this with the normal relative clause would be, we broke the computer which belongs to my father. Okay, and so the which belongs is what we're changing here. Again, this is in the first part of the class today. The next sentence, the man is in the store. The man is wearing a blue sweater. Well, let's take out these parentheses first and get to business. The man is in the store. The man is wearing a blue sweater. So we're taking out the man, as we have that twice. The man, and we're going to take out is, because we don't need that. And we're going to move the man wearing a blue sweater is in the store. Okay, the man wearing a blue sweater is in the store. So this is one of my first, towards the beginning of class as well, where we don't need to talk about the blue sweater man, but to specify where he is. Oh, he's in the store. Okay. That one might be a little bit more confusing. This is who is wearing would be the original relative clause. Okay, so who is what we're taking out. All right, well, moving on to number 4. Again, hopefully you're all following me. First, we'll start with the parentheses. He found a doctor. The doctor works at a hospital in Madrid. Well, doctor needs to be taken out. So he found a doctor who works at the hospital in Madrid would be the original. And so the original relative clause, I should say. And so what we need to do is take out the relative clause and change the verb into the ing form. He found a doctor working at a hospital in Madrid. Okay, and hopefully everybody's following me with this. People won't be allowed to enter. People have arrived late. So what do we do with this one? People is repeated, and so we'll take that out right away. People won't be allowed to enter have arrived late. So people who have arrived late won't be able to enter. Okay. So this is the original relative clause, and so what we need to do is take out that slash as well. Oops. People having arrived late won't be able to enter. So again, we've taken out the relative clause who and then changed the main verb have into the ing form, the present participle. Again, I hope there's no more questions. You can always rewatch the video as well. But as for now, let's move on to number 6. It says, don't wake the baby. The baby is sleeping in the next room. Well, to make this, and I actually think to make it a normal relative clause sentence first might be a little bit easier for everyone to understand. So, don't wake the baby who is sleeping in the next room. So let's take out who is, and we have our sentence. Don't wake the baby sleeping in the next room. All right. I'd like to take a little time for everyone to absorb all of this information that you're receiving. It is a lot of information, but it makes sense, and maybe you don't need to remember the rules, but maybe you can just do it by the sound, okay? So you have just a couple more examples here. Number 7 says, who is that boy? That boy is walking in the forest. So who is that boy? That boy is repeated. So who is that boy who is walking in the forest is the original relative clause here. Let's take out who is. Who is that boy walking in the forest is our new sentence. Okay. So that's our reduced relative clause. Number 8, the man is over there. The man wants coffee. All right, so the man is repeated. So we'll take some of this out. The man is over there, wants coffee. And now I'm trying to think. The man who is over there wants coffee, but we can't do that. The man who wants coffee is over there is our original relative clause sentence. The man wanting coffee is what we're going to do. So we'll take out to the relative clause and take our main verb and add an ing. The man wanting coffee is over there. Now, normally we can't use the verb want with an ing form, and that's because it's a static verb, a state verb. And I think there's another name for that as well. That because it's not an action word, you can't use the ing form because the continuous tenses are all about action and moving. For example, I am speaking. I'm speaking now, it's an action. You can hear me. You are listening, okay? And so want is something that comes from inside, okay? And so it's not an action verb. It comes from the inside of your head, I should say. It's more used with opinions and beliefs and things like that. Okay. All right, one more drink of water. My throat is so dry today. Okay, so number 9 says, those books were mine. Those books had been lying on the table. All right, so those books were mine. Those books is repeated. Oops. There. Books were mine. Those books. We're just going to move these. So those books which or had been lying on the table were mine. Those books lying. We're taking out the verb to be in this. We're doing this. Those books lying on the table were mine. And on this last one, Jenny is on the train. The train is arriving at platform 4. There's my period all the way over there. Jenny is on the train, which is our relative clause that we would use. Jenny is, oops, let me get rid of this one. Jenny is on the train, which is arriving at platform 4. We'll take out this, the relative clause and the verb to be. Jenny's on the train arriving at platform 4. All right, so let's see. So those are all the examples that I have for you today. Again, if you have any questions, I'm sorry I can't answer at the moment. Let's see, let's get back to the other screen. And I am going to stop screen sharing, and hopefully you don't have any questions. Now I have 2 viewers, so let me just do this question and see if anyone has any questions from there. And I think it's slowly working, and I'm not sure. Question and answer. Any questions to those viewers that are just watching and not participating in the actual class? If you do, I can answer the question. Okay, well, it doesn't seem like it, and so now I am going to stop screen sharing. And you'll soon see me again, hopefully. This is our business page, James Simmonds, and yep, here I am. So great, got a little closer there with getting excited about the grammar. And I think that's it for today. So hopefully you learned something. It is an advanced class. It is difficult, but hopefully it made a little bit of sense. And again, maybe you can use it. Not know why, but it sounds good. So, and that's just a part of learning English as well. All right. Well, I had a good time. Explaining grammar is always fun for me. So hopefully you enjoyed it too. And hopefully I will see you in my next class, which is on Saturday. And that's it. So check out the classes on our site, and hopefully I'll see you all soon, okay? Thanks for watching.